Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Reanimation. This episode of Reanimation is my Friday the 13th special, where I will be reviewing video games based off of the Friday the 13th horror movie franchise. So I guess we have to start where it all began. The first Friday the 13th video game to be released was in 1985 for the Commodore 64. Before I begin, I would like to make note that people were really offended by the cover of this game, stating that it was too graphic. I guess entertainment has come a long way. Nowadays we can watch Saddam Hussein get butt-fucked by Satan in a cartoon fashion. I'm upset with this cover too, to tell you the truth, because it's not historically accurate. Anyone who is a true Friday the 13th fan knows the axe mark in Jason's hockey mask is on the other side of the mask, which occurred in Friday the 13th Part 3. This isn't even the game developer's fault, because they took this cover from the movie cover itself, Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, so I don't know how anybody fucked that up. This game was also released for the ZX Spectrum a year later in 1986, and its cover is more suitable for everybody of that time period. When the game begins, you must pick a camp counselor. So in this game, you have to find a weapon and kill Jason. How do you kill Jason? Well, you have to hit camp counselors with the weapon and see which one of them is disguised as Jason. So I just found the camp counselor that's disguised as Jason Voorhees, and I know this because when I swing my weapon at the character, it flashes to another character that's wearing all black. So what I have to do is follow this person around and hit them with the weapon until Jason is dead. And believe it or not, the weapon that I'm using is an axe. The year this game was released, the Friday the 13th series took a weird turn. Since Jason was killed off in Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, and Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, they had to make someone dress up as Jason Voorhees, literally, disguised himself as Jason, and killed his victims in a Voorhees style for his own revenge plot. That is my only guess as to where they got the idea for this video game, and in my personal opinion, it is a concept that did not convert over to the wonderful world of video games. In comparison, LJN's Friday the 13th appears godly, and that is probably the only nice thing you will ever hear about Friday the 13th for the NES in your entire life. I don't think this game needs any introduction. As far as reviewing this game is concerned, I don't have anything to say because the Angry Video Game Nerd, aka James Rolfe, has reviewed this game better than anybody else would or could. Now, we all know that this game is poorly developed and that it is notably one of the hardest games to complete due to its flaws. But did you know that within the blueprints of this game's shitty programming that it is possible to beat this game in under 4 minutes? When you start the game, you must pick this camp counselor. His name is Mark, and Mark has to start at this cabin. This can be achieved by simply resetting the game until it gives you this start. I've seen this take anywhere from 5 resets to 40 resets, but when you do finally get it, trust me, it's worth it. Also, the Jason alarm can't go off as soon as the game starts. When the game begins, you're going to want to kill 3 zombies and collect the lighter. You're going to want to jump to collect the lighter because you got to collect the knife too. Once you get the knife and the lighter, you're going to want to go left and enter the first cabin because you got to get a note that's going to tell you you have to go to the woods. Now exit the cabin and go left. Enter your first downward pathway. When in the woods, you're going to want to go left and jump because you have to make a key appear that you have to collect in order to get into the cabin that's within the woods. Now you have to do the glitch. You have to go to the right and enter the first upward pathway. Hit up again, enter the cabin, then immediately exit the cabin. Now you're going to want to go up the pathway again, enter the cabin, turn to the right, and get the note. This note's going to tell you to grab a torch, which is the most powerful weapon against Jason. You need this note in order to collect the torch. Now when you leave the cabin in the woods, you're going to want to go to the right, enter the first downward pathway, continue right, and enter the next downward pathway. Now continue right and enter the first cabin, go up in the cabin and turn around, and then you'll see the torch on the ground which you have to collect. Now when you exit this cabin, you're going to want to go right and enter the first downward pathway that you see. And then you're going to go left because this is where you're going to fight Jason outside. Now if you're quick enough, you can beat him outside with the torch without even having to go into a cabin to beat Jason the first time. Now I just got the most powerful weapon in the game and I beat the first form of Jason in under 2 minutes. Now I'm not good enough to beat the game in under 4 minutes, but it is possible. I've been trying to practice, but unfortunately I'm not good enough yet. Next game we got on the list is Friday the 13th, Road to Hell. Now, it's a cell phone game, and I was able to play this on my computer by downloading a cell phone game emulator. It's called a micro emulator. I have to say, I am absolutely stunned that there is more than one Friday the 13th video game. See, I grew up with the Nintendo, and I actually owned the one for the NES, and I thought that was the only one ever made. I never knew there was one for the Commodore 64 or one ever made for a cell phone. For what it is, it's pretty fucking sweet. You are finally able to play as Jason, swinging a fucking machete. The graphics aren't bad either. It reminds me of something from the 16-bit era. Playing this makes me pose the question, why couldn't we have had something like this during the 16-bit era? The answer is because Universal Studios purchased a company called LJN, which controlled video games based on movies. It all traces back to a Donkey Kong legal dispute between Nintendo and Universal. The long short of it is that nobody could make a video game based off of a movie without paying out the ass. So nobody did it. Instead, what we had were movie character portrayals in video games. For example, the character in the Splatterhouse series bears a striking resemblance to Jason. Now, I never had Splatterhouse growing up, so the closest I got to playing as Jason as a kid was in a game called Kid Chameleon. For those of you who have never heard of Kid Chameleon, it is basically the Super Mario Brothers of the Sega Genesis, and it was cool because it had a power-up which was a hockey mask, and when you put this hockey mask on, you were able to throw axes at your enemies. Now, anybody who's played this and has gotten the hockey mask has instantly thought of Jason Voorhees. Why couldn't they just make a game like this? We all would have been happy, and the Genesis would have been the console to do it on. Now we have to jump into the underground of the video game market and play fan-made video games based off of the Friday the 13th horror movie franchise. This game is just called Friday the 13th, and it was created by an independent game company called Haboc Games. So the object in this game is to find a weapon and kill every innocent bystander in the stage before you can proceed to the next stage. It only took over 20 years, but we're finally able to play a decent 3D Friday the 13th video game where we get to play as Jason. This is fucking awesome. It isn't a very long game, but it is a lot of fun, and you'll see things that are relevant to the Friday the 13th horror franchise, such as the diner from Jason Goes to Hell. That's in this game. I define this game as a mini sandbox game because there is a world that can be explored, and did I mention that there are Easter eggs too? Yeah, that's right, around the map, hidden, there are little coins that you can get which unlock different costumes from the Friday the 13th horror movie franchise. You can even unlock one to be Jason's dead mother. That's fucking awesome. This is pretty cool. I found a little glitch where I could get out of the map. Now, I was able to get back into the map really easily, and it put me underneath the lake where I found an Easter egg. You might remember this next one from Jason X, Jason in Space. It's just a glitch I found. Finally, somebody made a Friday the 13th video game where you played the camp counselor, and they did it right. And this game is absolutely fucking terrifying to play by yourself. This is an escape game where you have to search the map for items in order to escape, except the map is Camp Crystal Lake, the year is 1984, and there is a deranged killer stalking you in the woods. It's as if the creator took the original concept in Friday the 13th for the NES and he made it terrific, and he made it in compliance with today's standards of video games. It's 3D, it's awesome, and it plays out just like a horror movie. Now the thing that I thought was cool is the creator did make it so you do have to find a note in one of the cabins, and it was really reminiscent of how LJN's video game made you find a note in order to collect the torch. I thought that was kind of cool. My only gripe with this game is that it is very fussy when it comes to requirements. In order for me to play this game, I had to uninstall Windows XP on my computer and install Vista 64-bit. Then after that, I had to find specific versions of Visual Studio and .NET Framework that are compatible with the game. In total, it took me about 3 days of tinkering and researching to finally get this game to run, and I do have to say one thing, it was totally worth it to finally play a decent Friday the 13th video game where you play the camp counselor. I'd do it all over again. In fact, I'd probably spend 2 weeks.
I have plans for you.
Fight!
Of course, I was saving the best for last. This game is called the TerrorDrome, and it's a 2D side-scroller fighting game which consists of all our favorite horror movie characters. And I gotta tell you, Jason is my favorite character in this game. He is untouchable. I remember being 15 years old and playing Mortal Kombat and saying, you know, it would be awesome if you could play a fighting game with all of the horror movie characters. And here I am, almost 15 years later, I'm finally able to play it. I never thought this is something that would actually be a reality. Now, anybody that has played a Street Fighter game is going to know how to pick up this game and play right away. You know what I mean. It's basically doing a quarter circle with a joystick and hitting a button. Now, the supers are the same as in Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition, where you do 2 quarter circles in the button. I'm putting links to all the games in the description so you can go download them and try them yourself, but as always, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos. I'm going to end this review with the final fight, which is Alive Jason versus Undead Jason.
Fight!
No.